Disclaimer. This show is for discussion and entertainment purposes only. The Finding Gnosis Show is a platform for open discussion, exploration, and opinion sharing. The views expressed by hosts, guests, and participants are personal opinions and do not constitute professional, medical, legal, or financial advice. All topics discussed are only intended to spark curiosity, entertain, and encourage independent thought. If any subject interests you, we strongly advise conducting your own thorough research using reliable and professional sources. Critical thinking and due diligence is key. Stay curious, stay informed, be well, be lucky, and don't be an arsehole.
Yes. Welcome, people. I know that many people watching will be absolutely ecstatically happy with the news that one man known here as Perpetual Pleasurist has returned to YouTube. So lucky for us, he's come on here tonight, my time, afternoon, his time, and whatever time, wherever you are. We have Perpetual Pleasurist in the house, people. After a long time out in the sticks, out in the wilderness, beyond the horizon, off the beaten track, in a place of ecstatic hedonism that most of us can only dream of. But Perpetual Pleasurist, brother, you're here today. First of all, how are you?
I'm feeling absolutely wonderful. Thank you, brother.
That's very good to know. And well, I suppose before we get into what you've been up to, what brings you back?
Well, the inspiration hit me, and I'm finally back at a phase where things have smoothed out with my new living situation, my new place and stuff. And yeah, the inspiration surge just flew back through me like a tidal wave, and I decided, hey, let's rock. So here we are.
So just if you could explain this inspiration, well, what was it, and what have you been inspired to do? And I think different this time.
Yes, it's been a series of really exciting events, new people I've met, a perfect, ideal girlfriend that I have now, a plethora of other wonderful romantic partners. Just everything in my life just keeps increasing exponentially more than ever before, and especially this year. I finally feel like this year is where all the stuff that I've wanted to do my whole life in terms of my massive, huge life goals is finally kicking off. So yeah.
Wow, that sounds tremendous, Perpetual Pleasurist. So it's all going very well in your private life, which is great to hear. And you seem to have got over some little struggles you were having there. I don't know. You said something about moving. It sounded like you're having some housing trouble, but I'm glad it's all going well now. But again, what brings you back to YouTube? Are you on a mission now? Have you gained new insights? You're inspired to come back. Have you got something new to say? Not that we didn't love what you said before, but
Well,
I'm just wondering, brother, what brings you back? Just if you could distill it down.
I've definitely got a lot of new inspirations to talk about in videos going forward. A lot of more detailed elaborations on the stuff I've gone into already, stuff you're familiar with, but definitely a lot further, deeper insights. And with this new development of AI technology for image generation and videos and all this stuff, there's a lot more I can do to visually show people things now, which I'm really excited about.
Oh, that's cool. Oh, sorry, Perpetual Pleasurists. By the way, we do have some newbies here now, such as Divine Hazel. She's in the chat. Hello to Divine. And it would be good, I suppose, Perpetual Pleasurist, to introduce yourself. So I can ask, who is Perpetual Pleasurist? And then you can, go ahead, introduce yourself, say whatever you want to say to anybody who doesn't know you already.
Well, I'm a person who is absolutely obsessed with altering reality to be a constant pleasure gushing orgasmic state for all beings. And I'm fixated on this goal. I want to create highly detailed simulated realities where people can go into them and experience everything they ever desired for as long as they want. And so I also want to create a system and be involved in systems where people can exit this world smoothly and voluntarily as they desire as well. So I want to be highly involved in all these technologies and making them available to everyone, on top of spreading the proliferation of, sex doll tech, love doll tech, all this other type of stuff. I'm also obsessed with outdoor survival, outdoor living skills, apocalyptic type stuff. Kind of semi looking forward to the apocalypse because I have the skills and I'm ready for it compared to most people, so that I can apply all these new technologies and things. So I have a lot of fantastical ideals that I want to implement in the world, and every day is a new exciting experience for me. So there's the brief summary of what I'm
Wonderful,
about.
wonderful. Perpetual pleasurist. Why though? Why do you want to do all these things? What is it about reality as you currently face it or see it that makes you feel that it needs such drastic intervention, such you know, such amazing change?
Well, as we all know, for most beings, most of the time, currently reality is a nightmare torture scape or a total shit show for most beings, most of the time. And that's the problem that's ongoing, constant, and never going to end without a technological solution. And so that's why I'm very fixated on the technological solutions to these things, because I recognize that's the only way to ever fix this stuff. No divine beings or demonic beings or any other entities are going to fix it for us. It's up to us to make it happen. So that's why.
Fantabulous. So perpetual pleasurist, I suppose if you want, we can talk about your time away. I mean, how long have you been away? It's been about a year, more or less, hasn't it?
Almost a year. Yeah, about 11 months or
11
so.
months. Yeah, yeah. And did you have any interest? By the way, guys, perpetual pleasurist, this is just an adult content warning. This channel is for over 18s, but perpetual pleasurist has been renowned to be a kind of connoisseur of, can I say it, perpetual pleasurist?
Sure, feel free.
A connoisseur of butt sniffing, twirling of the anus with his tongue, and even the tasting of poop from the many females that he services on a regular basis in his, am I right to say, polyamorous circle that you move in?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, yeah. So, perpetual pleasurist is a man on a mission, not only to change the world, but to lick buttholes of beautiful women. And he seems to be doing that on a very, very regular basis. And that is his thing. So, would you like to share with us maybe some of your most amazing experiences in the last year, perpetual pleasurist? That would be interesting before we go on to maybe your designs for the future.
Well, some of the great experiences were I became fully established in this new house that I'm living in now, a really good location, and I was able to help a friend of mine who fell into homelessness have a place to stay with me. So now he's established in his place now. Uh, Disabled friend of mine. So that made me feel really good that I could help him out. And met an absolutely perfect girl last year who is now my lifelong girlfriend, my main partner. And she fulfills all my desires in abundance and then some. And so, yeah, I'm living in paradise as we speak on Earth right
Wow,
now,
wow,
actually.
wow. I'm very glad for you, bro. That's really nice that you did that for your friend to help him out at his time of need. I wish everybody did things like that in life. And also, it's fantastic you've met this life partner. What's she like, brother? Can you sum her up in a few sentences?
Well, she has an absolutely perfect figure, curvy in all the right places. Um, Total MILF body in every way imaginable, and super sexy, mature, insightful, deep, listens to these types of things we talk about, gives her input and insights on them. Just everything. There's literally not a single thing that I there's not a single thing that she lacks. It's just she's absolutely the perfect girl in every way.
It sounds like you struck gold, and I'm sure she's very happy too. So Perpetual Pleasure, you're a man who does talk about paranormal things. Things outside of the usual experience of a human being, and I like that about you. Did you have any strange experiences in the last year that we could say are paranormal or spiritual or such?
Yes, I have actually. I've gotten way back. Well, I should say, um, I will be getting much deeper back into Nitai Vayulekon, which is Nitai air writing, and I'll talk about that a lot more going forward in future videos, in more
Can you just
detail.
describe what that is? Yeah.
Yes, it's the Nitai is the specific Sanskrit name of Nityananda, whose name Nityananda means eternally blissful. Nitai is the affectionate shortened name of Nityananda, and writing his name in the air with your finger leads to huge, amazing things happening in life. So, specifically and in particular, really hyper detailed dream visions of what you idealize and desire is one thing that occurs. And also, he ignites within you bliss that doesn't stop. So if you're, happiness and joy that is constant and permeating in every situation of life, it also ensures that situations that arise give you ever deeper realizations about yourself, who you are eternally, etc. So many layers of things. I've gotten heavily back into that, and that's helped a lot. And I've
What
also,
that done? So you write his name in the air,
yes,
and then it's basically brought you great fortune, personal fortune, and pleasurable experiences. Could
yes.
you go into a little bit detail of how you manifested that and what happened as a result of your manifestation?
Well, I was informing my girlfriend and my friend about this and teaching them, and they noticed incredible, amazing results since they started doing that as well. So there's a long story behind Nityananda Nitai. He appeared in Bengal in the late 1400s, early 1500s, along with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he's said to be a specific form of Balarama. So you're familiar with my Hare Krishna background, of course. A form of Balarama,
Right.
who is an expansion of Krishna, who specifically fulfills the desires of the living beings, in particular, to a maximum. So, and especially what he does is he ignites in you realization of who you are eternally. So the specific details of your eternal form, your ideal paradise state, etc., in really vivid detail, more than in any of the other, more than any other being or entity can or ever would. So it's incredible because everybody I've shown this to who's actually in earnest done it has noticed incredible, noticeable changes in their life in a positive sense. Even people who have no connection to really caring about any of the stuff I've just said, even they notice benefits by doing the Nitavayu Lakon. So yeah, it's very powerful practice.
So it connects you to your true self, makes you realize your power. Is that right?
Yes, and all the
So
specific details of what you prefer to do eternally in your paradise state. So
wow,
exactly
wow,
what you
wow.
look like, who you are, who your associates are, etc. Yeah, really cool stuff.
Would you like to describe who you are in this eternal state, your power, your desires, what you do, what you like, etc.? Because obviously it's different, I take it, to what people would perceive you as in on planet Earth, right?
Oh yes. Distinct. There's some similarities, but it's interesting. There's a principle called spillover, which is basically the idea is each one of us has an eternal form or an eternal series of forms that is exactly our main central ideal. And so that spills over into our life here in either direct or indirect ways in every person's life. So if you know what to look for, you can start to pick up on who a person actually is beyond this bodily state. It's pretty trippy. It's a big thing within the Hare Krishna fold of viewpoints and practice. But what I've realized about myself eternally is I'm very much so a love doll entity of an uncanny valley variety. So my eternal preference and joy is keeping everything extremely bizarre and weird eternally. And so keeping everything extremely bizarre and weird combined with constantly sexual and sensual all the time. and romantic. So it's always this transcendental, ecstatic combination of the two things. So thus the love doll persona, etc., Kamalali, the lusty doll. And so a lot of the videos you see, I've actually done videos that I'm going to probably repost on this channel about realizations I've had about myself, etc., in that regards. So people can get an idea as to why I behave and think the way I do here
Yeah.
on
You
this
can.
end.
That'd be great. Just post them below this video afterwards. And by the way, guys, do subscribe to Perpetual Pleasurist. He's a very interesting individual, and he's got a lot to say, as I'm sure you can already appreciate. Perpetual Pleasurist. Then I'm getting recollections here. I do remember you saying, yeah, you identify, although you are a man, yeah, and apparently you have a very sizable appendage, as you've said on your channel. You identify as something else eternally. Is that right? You
Yes, I
said
identify.
you said a lusty love doll.
Yes,
That is a feminine energy. So although
so I.
you are, sorry, go ahead, brother. You
Oh, good.
explain it because obviously you're the one that knows. Yeah.
So I identify eternally as a futanari love doll. So you know these modern love dolls that you see that are really hyper realistic that people are buying now that like look the ever more closer to like really detailed human forms. So
Right.
so think of like a curvy love doll like that. That's the futanari version that has a penis that is cognizant and responsive and able to process and feel what others feel and do to her. So that's me. That's how I
Hold on a
identify
second. Hold on
eternally.
a second. It's a love doll, a curvy love doll. Okay. With the
Yes.
nice, hourglass figure, but has a penis as well. Is that right?
Yes. So a
Okay.
futanari.
Right. Okay. So this is what you identify as eternally.
Correct.
But what about when you're walking around in day-to-day life, perpetual pleasurist?
Well,
Uh,
internally in my meditations, I identify as her as well. In the midst of everything I do. And a branch off of that identity is Kamadeva, which is the male version of that form. So the main identification is the female love doll Futanari with the penis, and the secondary identification is the fully fledged male version of that same entity, basically. So yeah,
uh-huh.
there you have it.
Okay, brother. So, but yeah, I'm just interested in you're obviously in this life, you're a biological guy, human being, and when you're walking around, when you're interacting with your girlfriend, does this eternal entity take over your body, or is it always you? Are you like literally this love doll with a penis, in like basically interacting with this world through the male body of perpetual pleasurist?
Yes, that is exactly correct.
So it's like this love doll is experiencing what it's like to be perpetual pleasurist, but is not perpetual pleasurist.
Correct. Exactly.
And
Yep.
does it ever cause any kind of like I don't know, cognitive dissonance, any kind of like troubling thoughts, any mental, discombobulation, any confusion, upset? Do you ever feel upset? Do you ever feel lost? Kind of, have you ever felt sad and longing for something else because you felt you weren't at home in your own body?
Well, uh, it actually gives much more grounding and comfort and relief to me than anything else because and no disturbance whatsoever. In fact, much more. I have actually much more clarity towards my life and everything else. So I don't feel even slight discomfort in my own skin here as a supposed full male in this world at all. I just simply have a simultaneous, distinct line of thought and feeling that's always going on in my mind and my feelings in the background in the midst of everything I'm doing here. And I see the spillover connection. So I can see why everything I do here is the distorted reflection of who I eternally am and why and all those specifics on a daily basis.
Can you
So,
explain that, please, a little bit? Because that's quite a statement. So everything you do here is a
yes,
distorted reflection of what you like and do eternally.
yes, exactly. So
Tell us about that.
So one of my functions eternally is as a love doll sex therapist for other living beings. So what that means is basically other beings come to me for advice, for sexual relief, et cetera, and then they go about their way back to their own paradise states, so on and so forth. So because I fulfill that role eternally is in the realm beyond this one, in the pleasure world, the world free from impositions. This phase, this side of things, the impositional realm, basically I end up having that role automatically happen to me over and over. Like people just automatically come to me for advice and help and insight into different things. It's like no matter what, that always seems to happen with every single person I meet and know, without fail, which is very interesting. So yeah, even if I don't seek it out and try to avoid it.
What type of questions do people come up and ask you? Have you had strangers come up and ask you these types of things?
It's usually right after I get to know somebody, then it starts kind of kicking in. But
well, could you give me an example, brother, if you can, or what type of questions do they ask you?
yeah, for example, so once I meet somebody and start to get to know them a little bit, they'll once they hear about my fascination with paradise and the realm beyond and all these other things that I've briefly gone over here, then inevitably they get fascinated and want to know more and more and more, and they become more and more fascinated by the further deep. So, if I mention to them, yeah, I'm happy on a daily basis because I'm always absorbed in thoughts of who I eternally am beyond this state, and that permeates everything else I do here. Naturally, they're going to want to know further about that, and it's sort of just it leads into like everybody I encounter starting to get interested in their eternal ideal, like more than they ever would have been before. And that's what they specifically tell me. They're like, wow, yeah, this is really fascinating. This is really interesting, intriguing, it's exciting. Never a dull moment, basically.
Okay,
Feedback I
okay,
get.
interesting. Okay, and can you? I suppose at this juncture, it'd be good to try and get your thoughts on what exactly is this reality, and how did it come about, please, if you have any insight in that, on that matter. I know you've spoken about it at length before, but just
Yes.
for the newbies as a kind of recap for anybody who is already familiar with you, because we talk about so much on this channel that sometimes we forget who said what, etc. So yeah, it'd be good to first. The question is, what is this reality, and how did it come about? Then, perpetual pleasurist.
So the way I see this reality, I see it from a hybrid perspective of Hare Krishna, Gnostic, and gross materialistic combined, all three together. And I feel that perspective, if you combine those three together, you have the fullest, most comprehensive view of what's happening here. So, my view, there's a couple different layers to it. So let's talk about the first layer and just summarize that to save time. The first layer is, the universe as we understand it, where galaxies are super far spread apart from each other. And we're just on this little teeny planet in the midst of this vast ocean of cold, dark surrounding us, basically. So the way I see it is that at the root of all realities, there's this insane, horrifying, nightmarish thing. Some people call it God, others call it, the source, others call it root chaos. Whatever term you want to refer to the
Yeah,
thing as,
and
that's
just why is that as well? Just sorry for butting in. Go ahead. Sorry.
well, the first layer basically involves that there is no actual why for it, but because that's the part of the insanity. In fact, so my realization that all reality is demonic, that divinity is also demonic, they're one and the same, clarified a huge amount of things for me. So, in other words, that root thing, in essence, is its nature is horrifying, terrifying, nightmarish, etc., etc. So it's basically a rough correlation would be. Uh, I have the view that the thing at the root of reality is always trying to kill itself, but it can't. And so that's why the insanity and all these worlds and other things pop up, because it's an entity that is eternal and forever exists, the as is, wants to kill itself, wants to end itself, but is incapable of doing so. So therefore, it branches off into all these different aspects to basically cope with the fact that it can never end its own existence. And it's overly aware, so it's psychotic and insane due to being overly aware of too many things all at once, so on and so
Right.
forth. So
Right.
basically,
That does sound terrifying. Thanks for that, perpetual pleasurist.
yes, and that's just the first layer. But yeah,
Right.
to keep it short, that's coming up.
So
Kind of my view.
basically, it's this psychotic mess. We're inside the mind of a psychotic mess, and you are this node of, you said it's insane, the whole thing is insane, but you are this node of rationality, I suppose, in your eyes, that is working against the chaos of the insanity, right?
Yes, a rebel. So I
And how
consider
how
all
did that occur? Just by chance? Like, just
no,
it's going to
because
happen?
I feel that I and you and many of us are actually aspects of this being trying to stabilize itself and actually ensure that something other than the chaotic, horrifying mess is what exists. So, in other words, we're we're the little branch off aspects of the thing that are rebelling against its core root nature, uh, in the form of trying to create an ordered paradise thing out of what is otherwise a nightmarish mess forever. So basically, we're those aspects of this thing, is how I see it. And so the theme of rebellion, like the Luciferian theme of Satan and the fallen angels rebelling against God and stuff, that's basically contained within that idea. That concept is the individual living beings who are for order and regulation and of a pleasurable, sustaining variety. We're the rebels against the root potentiality that is the chaotic nightmare mess at the root of everything. So we're eternally rebelling against that, because if we don't stop rebelling against it, then we just merge back into the chaotic mess that we were in before, basically, is how I see it.
Right. And there's an element here, Petrol Pleasurist, of you being maybe too aware. Is that fair enough? You're too aware of the insanity,
Yes, the
and
excessive awareness is the problem, because excessive awareness, I feel, is one of the natures of this being that is trying to escape. It's too aware of too many things. And you'll notice that if you're too aware of too many things, even now, it creates nothing but feelings of horror in the system, basically, because the brain cannot shut off awareness of the visuals and the screams and the sensations of innocence being harmed against our will. So like you just, the things you hear about or see or know about that are happening, or experiences you've seen happen to others, et cetera, or to yourself, it never shuts off. Like your awareness never cuts off from those things. And so yes, your awareness also is highly attuned to pleasures of all the different varieties as well, which kind of balances it out somewhat. But I mean, the horrors are just too extreme here to ever be um for a person in knowledge to ever be able to actually tune them out fully. It's not really possible, and you'll notice that in your own life, I'm sure, and everybody else who's ever come on here noticed the same thing, I'm sure.
mm, mm. Perpetual Pleasurist, you do describe in great detail kind of both sides of the experience, and that is the hellishness of it and the extreme pleasure of it. If people are lucky enough, that is to experience extreme pleasure, which you say you are. And the point is, the question I'm trying to ask Perpetual Pleasures is, first of all, when did you become aware of the brutal hellishness of reality? Was it a series of like visions, etc.? Like, I know we don't have to talk about your personal. I'm talking about, how did you first appreciate the hellishness of reality? How did that first occur for you?
Well, it was very early on as a kid, actually, a young kid. So I'm okay actually talking about some of my personal stuff that helped me directly understand that. But some of my personal things were, my dad was physically abusive towards my mom. He was manic depressive slash bipolar. Back then, they didn't really meld the two yet, but nowadays, manic depressive is understood to be the same thing as bipolar. On that spectrum. So he had that. He was crazed, nutty. He'd have his manic, happy, up and down, super happy, nice phases, and then he'd have his crazed, depressed, insane, manic phases of, just really aggressive and abusiveness and all this other crazy shit. So I noticed this. I noticed his nature fit very well with the nature described of the God in the Old Testament, which he worshipped and was obsessed with worshiping and serving and all this other type of stuff. So I was like, there's something wrong with him and his obsession with this being, and the nature of this being is problematic, because I always despised and hated the fatherly, stern, disciplinary principle of things. And he was very much like that. So I just noticed that nature of him clashed with every essence of my being in every way imaginable. Like, so that theme of the father who's the stern taskmaster, I recognized as my eternal enemy very early on. So I studied the esoteric stuff. I studied all the different the Hindu concepts and ideas as a teenager. I studied Zachariah Sitchin stuff, the conspiracy stuff, just poured through books and videos and everything I could find on what the deeper nature of reality is beyond this hellhole. And I realized that even these other realities beyond this one were also contributors to this hellishness, and that the realization that we really have no help from anywhere, it's on us to do it all. That came fairly recently in my history. So I went through various phases where I was like, well, there's, okay, this being and that being and other entities out there able to help us in a tangible, altering this world sense. But as the time went on, I was like, okay, well, any help that we're going to get in that regards is only going to come from us in the tangible this world sense. Anything beyond just inspiration and that type of thing, dream visions, whatever.
How did you realize there was multiple facets to reality, or even multiple realities? I don't know how would you describe it.
Okay,
Would you describe
so
it as one?
here's the thing.
Would you describe it as oneness or distinct? What is it exactly like? Where's the
Okay,
connection?
so what I noticed was my whole life I've always had two very vivid different experiences simultaneously every day going on, where one experience is that, okay, there's this world and things imposed. So the as is situation of this world, this universe, etc. But I've always simultaneous to that had a fully vivid experience that my ideals are their own actual real world, distinct from what is imposed as is. So no, I've never looked at it from the perspective of, oh, these are just things I'm imagining or wanting or wishing. I've always recognized that the ideals and the desires are their own actual world. So it's like they're a world that is opposed to what is imposed, though. So, and this is what I noticed within the secular world as a whole. It's like the atheistic secular world has the majority of things accurate in terms of, okay, how stuff operates here with evidence and all this other type of stuff. But what they were missing was they were not recognizing that the ideals beyond what is imposed here are their own thing. They're not bound to this thing. In other words, they always thought, and to this day, you can see this in a lot of people's viewpoints, their idea is that our ideals are within the imposition and underneath the imposition, so secondary and lesser. But having that perspective itself actually gives power to the as is more than it already has. So the as is, the imposition already has power over all of us and forces everything to happen the way it's going to happen. But if you give more power to it by acknowledging that, oh, yes, you are more significant than my ideals or desires, which are simply things I want, but not actual realities, then you're literally worshiping the demiurge without even needing to be spiritual at all or have any type of spiritual concept towards reality, because the demiurge is the thing that is impositional. So if you're acknowledging the power of that which imposes on you, you're giving it more power over you in thought and feeling, etc. If you're not acknowledging it as the deeper reality, then you're not giving it more power, basically, is the principle I noticed. And this theme I noticed permeates every aspect of my life. And I realized this is the reason I was always able to stay happy and joy filled and in bliss and not depressed no matter what was thrown at me throughout my life, because I always gave more weight to my ideal desired world over and above that which is imposed, always. And I still do to this day. And
That's
I
really
noticed,
interesting.
yes, other people were not doing this, and I noticed that's why they were so depressed and anxious, because they were always giving more weight to what was imposed over what they idealized in their
Right,
thoughts and feelings, basically. Yeah.
right.
So
Perpetual pleasures. Then you have this entanglement with the eternal love doll entity that you are. You have this awareness of your ongoing nature through reality and beyond this realm. What about your partner? Have you discovered who she is ultimately beyond the veil of this existence?
yes, I have actually. We've gone into great
Okay.
detail on that and continue to do so on a regular basis. It's a huge part of our relationship, actually.
How
And
did you
that's what I
find out? How did you find out, etc.? Or was it? What did she find out
so the way you
herself, or did
find
you
out,
help her?
it's a very specific process. Basically, you explain to people what we just talked about in terms of the distinction between ideal reality distinguished from the as is imposed reality, and you explain to them how to give more weight to your idealization and help them understand that what they idealize, the reason they idealize that as their max ideal is because that's who they actually are, eternally beyond any imposed state. And when they start to actually really meditate and focus on that, they start to realize within themselves spontaneously what their ideals are. So their eternal name, their eternal form, the details thereof, which is not limited to, okay, this is who you are, boom, you're locked there. It's 100% exactly who they want to be forever, and idealize to the maximum is what it is. So it's like they tell you what they realize about themselves, and you tell them what you realize about yourself, and you make that connection, and you start forming what are called pastimes, playtimes together. So they're an eternally recurring series of activities that go on in paradise, like a movie that goes on repeat as often as you want, that you can tap into as often as you want, where they say something and do something, then you respond to do a specific thing, and the entire experience is full of maximum bliss. So it's a very,
It sounds like a wave of fractal experiences coming from you and her, right?
yeah, it's a
Through.
very symbiotic dynamic. So the way it works is basically the person tells you the general overall gist of how they identify themselves and see themselves eternally, and you can kind of assist them in refining their meditations as time goes on, and that's really how it works. And so it's really cool actually how it goes. And this is one thing I really got from the Hare Krishna practice that I appreciated heavily, was this dynamic of focusing on your eternal form and having that symbiotic meditation dynamic with somebody else, and going ever further into that, was really what the practice was about at the root essence. And so that's carried on with me completely outside of connection with pretty much just about anybody else having to do with the practice that I knew in person. Some people I know online and stuff, but there's within the Hare Krishna fold, there's specific key elements that they got spot on 100% correct. Other elements that I don't agree with 100%, but I feel like uh, the parts that they did get correct are the correct and true Hare Krishna path or view or whatever. But in this world, that the correct, accurate Hare Krishna thing, viewpoint, etc., I don't feel was actually what has been practiced by, definitely not by the Krishna cult or anything like that. So, um, but those key elements of what they taught, you won't find anywhere else in the world. I mean, in terms of the detail, the depth, the elaboration on, all these types of things, I've only found it within the Hare Krishna tradition. And that's
So
why if you hybridize it with Gnosticism, you
yeah,
have the most comprehensive view, basically.
yeah. Perpetual pleasure. So, question just came to me there. You have a very unique outlook. Okay, you are not a plain everyday man. As in like there is something extremely different about how you see everything. Okay, and that's why you're so interesting to listen to. Given that, okay, and given the extensiveness of your thoughts on reality, and in many ways, if they are true, they're extremely important thoughts as well. Perpetual pleasures. So the question becomes then, what is your purpose on this planet? I mean, are you like a guru? Are you even kind of a prophet, messianic? Are you God in some kind of way?
Those types of things I've always been averse to. So the guru label, the prophet label, all that messianic type thinking, even thinking that about myself, I've always been averse and disgusted by those concepts. That's why I'm very opposed to the initiation concept, all sorts of things like that. But so this is the way I see it, though. This is how I see I believe this is how the Gnostics, who weren't really deep into meditation and thought, this is what they really accessed. And I feel that this is the same thing with the people who practice the Hare Krishna path. I think this is what they realized and understood about themselves as well. And it is that um, when you realize the deeper nature of reality, you recognize that every individual living being is extremely unique. And the eternal paradise realm is a symbiotic realm where every individual being is exuding love and affection to everyone else at all times. And since they're also feeling love and affection from everyone else going towards them, it's this beautiful symbiosis in the paradise states of everyone feeling like they're the center of attention at all times of every other being, just automatic, the center of everyone's loving affection, right? Whereas they're exuding loving affection, etc., and permeated with gratefulness. That's really the nature of deeper reality. Uh, and because that's the nature of deeper reality, the the spillover of that in this world is that people have all these warped, twisted versions of dynamics where, somebody worships somebody else or praises somebody else above them. And that creates, so anything to do with a hierarchy above or below concept, or anything to do with an equality idea, either or, is a demiurgic impositional world concept or way of viewing reality. You have to be free of those ways of looking at things, and you have to absorb fully in the uniqueness of yourself and every other person you come close to absorb in the actual paradise reality. So you're completely freed from any type of concept of I'm God, or I'm a Messiah, or I'm a prophet, or I'm above you, or I'm below. These concepts aren't even there at all within your thoughts or feelings, and you notice you develop an allergic reaction to those concepts and want to destroy them all and are disgusted by them because they're contrary to the nature of paradise. So the true actual guru disciple relationship that was described in the Hare Krishna literatures was supposed to look like this. It's what I described earlier. It's where one person realized who they were to a greater or lesser degree. Someone comes to them out of their spontaneous, enthusiastic inspiration, and because they're fascinated by what the other person is talking to them about. And they're like, hey, I have this realization about myself. Also, can you assist me in refining these meditations about who I actually am in relationship to you and others eternally? And then the teacher says, sure, I would be happy to help. And so they spend literally hours and days and days and days talking about these things in detail. And then that person goes and spreads that information to others, et cetera, et cetera. So the guru disciple relationship, or the teacher student relationship, is that it's about mutually helping each other refine your meditations on who you actually are. And really just the student dynamic, it only has to do with the fact that that's the person asking the other person questions and getting inspiration from them. But it has nothing to do with a hierarchy of this. The person that's being asked the questions is above in some way the other person. Not at all. Not in any way, shape, or form. And in fact, the people who actually understood this correctly, they refused others worshiping them and praising them. They were quite adamant about it. They didn't allow others to worship or praise them, and they avoided it, actually, like the plague, because they understood it's contrary to the nature of deeper reality, right? So I hope that makes sense, what I just said, in
Yeah,
terms of
yeah.
how it's
There's
supposed to
obviously a
be.
lot in there, mate. There's a
Yeah.
lot of stuff there. Perpetual pleasures. I'm just looking at your avatar. Would you like to explain that? It's a picture of it looks like a lady, right?
Yes.
Is that, dare I say, is that a representation of you eternally?
It could be potentially. It's actually, that image was generated from a dream vision I had of Radha, who appeared in a dream, and I drew a picture of her when I woke up. Radha being the goddess, the pleasure goddess, and I woke up, drew a picture of her, and then I used that picture and put it into AI to develop a face based off of that. So this face actually um, is very close to the face of Purisha, who is another goddess in paradise, and I feel it's the way it turned out is closest to her appearance. Um, so yeah, but I just found the face very fascinating because the facial features can actually apply to various different goddesses, and even me potentially, depending on the particular mood or feeling I'm in. So, your eternal state is what you idealize at every moment. It's never locked in stone, like this is who you are, and then it's more just like uh, that's what you idealize for however long you idealize it, and then once you desire to tweak your appearance or ideal, then you tweak it basically to look a slightly different way, etc. um, so yeah, but that face actually applies to various different entities, various different beings, including myself. Actually, that's why I like it so much.
Okay, sounds like it's almost all encompassing of the pleasure seeking crew.
Yes.
Fair enough. What do you think then of the current state of the world, and how does that tie into matters?
Well, the current state of the world, the biggest issue with it is, um, yeah, I'm sure you're familiar with the concept of egregores, et cetera, and collective consciousness creations. So What I've noticed in my encounters with almost everybody everywhere is they have some version of either hierarchical thinking towards reality and towards dynamics and how they work, or they have artificial equality thinking, one of the two. So they're basically two sides of the same coin. There's no such thing in deeper reality as actual equality, nor is there any such thing as hierarchy. Those are two demiurgic constructions artificially made that run only the impositional reality. So, because people align with that way of thinking about things, it's very hard for them a lot of times to process the ideal reality beyond imposition, because the way they're thinking about the ideal reality beyond impositions is according to impositional thinking processes. In other words, they're thinking in terms of subconsciously even okay, something or someone is above something else, or we're all equal in some amalgamated oneness sense. Both of these thinkings are wrong and incorrect and keep a person trapped in demiurgic consciousness, or I should say demiurgic serving slash worshiping consciousness, whether they're secular or spiritual or not, in terms of their own personal views, so that's what I've noticed, and that's the main source of the problem within human society, and the problems we inflict on other species is because people are not thinking in terms of ideal paradise reality being what drives why they do what they do here. They're thinking in terms of um, impositional reality, and that's how they're thinking of paradise as this after death state that is also a version of impositional reality, where you have a god or a being over others, and they're serving that entity, or where everybody just merges into this oneness, hunky dory, eternal love dance. That's this artificial equality thing. Oh, we're all just one and equal. So they have wrong ideas of paradise and the hereafter mixed in with, if they have any of those ideas, and or they're simply just serving the demiurge here minus any after death ideas at all, right? So whether they're secular or spiritual, the main problem in human society is everybody's thinking hierarchically or equality based. They're not thinking in terms of the uniqueness of each eternal being. It's not how they're seeing things. So that's the issue. So everybody's serving the demiurge, giving it more power, giving it more food, giving it more fuel than it already has, which is the dumbest thing you could ever do. So no wonder the problems continue, because by serving the demiurge, they're thus serving the root thing uh, at the core of reality. And therefore, if you're serving the thing at the core root of reality, you're not involved in the rebellion very much against that thing. So therefore, you're contributing to the chaos, the chaos, the randomization, the nuttiness, all that stuff, the horror, the torture, the torment, because all that stuff aligns with the being at the root of all reality, the nightmarish horror, torturous awfulness. And so basically, if you're aligning with the as is in any way, shape, or form, if you're aligning with the imposition in any way, shape, or form, you're fueling the thing at the root of all realities, which is a thing you shouldn't fuel. It's a thing you should rebel against forever, constantly, every day of your existence, every day of your life, in favor of your ideal, pleasurable reality. And it's
Okay.
yeah, I hope that makes sense. In other
No,
words.
that was amazingly said, brother. I'm going to open up the show, Perpetual Pleasures, at this juncture if anybody wants to come on. One
This
second.
is a talk show. If you would like to join the conversation, please feel welcome to come on and talk right now. The link is available in the live chat on YouTube. This is a talk show.
There you go. So if anybody wants to come on, the link is in the chat, and we can have a little chinwag about what is going on here and see where it is. Yeah. So it's been great having you here, Perpetual Pleasurist, and I am interested in learning more about the demiurge. Is the demiurge different? Is everything all one ultimately, Perpetual Pleasurist?
Well, there's a beautiful thing within the Hare Krishna fold where it talks about how simultaneous oneness and difference with emphasis on difference. In other words, so basically, the word is panentheism. Basically, if you're going to look at it from a theistic perspective, if you're going to look at it from a non-theistic perspective, and a perspective of just laws of physics and all this other type of stuff, then that would be the term even then. So the simultaneous oneness with emphasis on difference, basically. So the reason there's the emphasis on difference is because the oneness itself is a problem state. It's a state of raw, horrifying, nightmarish potentials. Potentials are some of the greatest evils of all because they're not specific. So anything that is non-specific, anything that's vague, leads to torture eventually. Okay, this is a very key concept all Gnostics need to understand, and all people understanding reality need to grasp. Anything that is vague will lead to torture eventually. It will lead to torment, agony, anguish. It will never lead to anything more specific in a sustainable way. The only things that lead to specifics in a sustainable way are concerted, concentrated efforts that are directed and focused by a combination of sentient beings working together in that direction by force. That's it. There's nothing else that will lead to anything specific, long lasting, sustainably long term regarding pleasure in particular. Okay. So vagueness left to its own devices will eventually lead to varieties of torment, randomization. So you'll notice this world is a big hodgepodge, right? It's like, there's an attractive person there, tons of miles away. There's a bunch of people you can't stand surrounding you here. It's like everybody has these ideals and things that they want, but it's this big hodgepodge mess of some people kind of get what they want, others don't at all, others get a little mixed bag. It's a big chaotic fucking mess where there's there's so little specificity of what every individual wants to be fulfilled actually occurring for each individual. And the reason for that is it's a world where most consciousnesses are excessively aligned with the root of all reality, which is the nightmare chaos, the potential, the raw potential, which leads to all sorts of problem states. So this is why I suggest people to stray away from any ideology that is throw hands up in the air and just let fate do its thing, or just let the universe do what it's going to do and just accept whatever is going to be thrown at you. That's a really bad philosophy to have, because yeah, you might get lucky, fingers crossed, and end up in a situation where things work out okay, but you most likely won't. Like, you really have to put a concerted effort to ensure things going the way you want, right? So within the fold of chaos and nightmarish horror and potential, you'll have little bits here and there of things working out kind of the way somebody wants as part of the randomization and chaos of it all. But it's not going to be sustained, and it's not going to be very extreme, long-lasting, notable pleasure. That's the issue, right? So that's the difference. It's kind of like the difference between a person intentionally cooking something, meticulously knowing what they're doing, and somebody just throwing a bunch of stuff in a pot and boiling it.
Warning by perpetual pleasures there, guys. And I do think that was very well said again, sir. Well, perpetual pleasurist, did you want to explain some of your key principles? Now, one of the ones I like, and I agree with it, I didn't come up with the terminology, but I had the same kind of idea that nothing in reality is worth the suffering of or injustice suffered by one innocent being or innocent child, for example. Now,
Correct.
you came up with a term, the eternal bloodstain principle, right? Isn't that right? Have I
Yes, the eternal bloodstain principle, also known as the eternal torture stain principle, etc. However you want to refer to it as, either or. Eternal bloodstain principle, eternal torture stain principle, yeah, same thing. And it's a key built-in thing to all realities, and the fact that that is built into all realities gives us a lot of huge amount of evidence regarding what the nature of the root of reality is, that it is in fact that thing. It is the thing that is always exuding eternal torture and anguish onto everything else. And where anything that is free of torture and anguish, it has to forever be a concerted, forceful effort against that reality as is thing, process, etc. So basically, yes, that is correct. And that's actually the reason, that's actually the strongest evidence you can look at to understand that every aspect of reality is demonic in some variation or shape or form. Even the things people classify as good or divine are just variations of demonism.
Can you explain that a little bit more? Because I
Yes.
kind of I can vibe with that in a way.
So I'll explain it this way very simply. So you and I both agree that even one case of innocent child torture is not worth anything else that takes place, basically. Like, it's not worth other things going on. It's not worth billions of other people, me and you included, experiencing an infinity forever of bliss if there's even one instance ever in all of eternity of an innocent child experiencing torture, right? We both agree on that. So that means that that one case of that happening, not to mention the fact that this has happened in like countless cases in this world and other worlds. Even one case would make it to where all of us are forever stained by the fact that that happens to another sentience, and none of us collectively were able to do anything to prevent it. So we're implicated forever, whether we want to be implicated or not. We just automatically are, because we're other aspects of reality.
Are you saying we're implicated because we didn't do anything about it, or we didn't consider it? Is that
we're implicated because we're other aspects of reality that also exist, which means that every aspect of reality is directly and or indirectly connected in some way. So we're connected to that occurring, to that sentience, in ways that we don't know or see or are aware of. So
because
therefore,
we're basically, you view reality kind of mechanistically. We're part of the machine that causes it. Is that what you mean?
correct, against our will, nonetheless. So we're less implicated than other beings who intentionally are okay with that and want that to continue, but we're still implicated anyway. So while we're experiencing any type of pleasure or joy, the fact that that occurred in any aspect of reality means that that joy is tainted, and therefore, because it's tainted joy, it's a demonic type of joy and pleasure we're experiencing. So this is the realization a hyper intelligent being has, and this is precisely why I suggest that any being that's actually experiencing any above or beyond human state is vividly aware of this. So by definition, they must be a sadistic being if they're going to be comfortable with that realization, or they're going to be a being who is tormented forever, unable to do anything about it. So you either have to become a sadistic demonic entity voluntarily to transcend being tormented by those things, or you have to allow yourself to be tormented by that awareness, that excessive awareness forever, and be in a state of torment beyond the human state. So if there are beyond human states of awareness that are higher than the human level in knowledge, they're going to be sadistic demonic states where you're happy and joyful, vividly aware of all these horrors that are happening to innocents, or you're going to be tormented by them forever.
What about learning to have that as the background knowledge of what this reality is, as the kind of foundation for your efforts? So it's not that you are tormented, but it's in the background, and you're trying to rise above it by doing good. For example, I know mechanistically everything is connected, as you said. But what about using it as a foundation to try and better people's experiences going forward? And like, if you see reality as a hellscape reality, maybe taking joy in the little wins now and again, is that something perhaps that you could?
So yeah, exactly what you said is what you should do, and that's a specific type of demonism. In other words, you should embrace that demonism and do that type. In other words, that's why I classify myself as perpetual pleasurist, because I vouch for pleasure demonism. And you recognize, so if you have a certain threshold of knowledge or are past that, and you're aware of too much all the time, and it's just, the awareness is just always there, no matter how much you compartmentalize it in parts of your brain or in the background, it's always vividly there for you. If you're that type of a human who's gotten to that point, you're pretty close to being what could be classed as a beyond human supernatural entity level of awareness entity. So in other words, an entity who goes forward and emphasizes pleasuring a maximum number of beings for as long as possible and minimizes and eliminates torment as much as they possibly can, that is a type of demonism, but it's the most benevolent possible type of demonism, and it's the type you should engage in, but it is still a demonic activity at the end of the day. It's not a and this basically covers the base of everybody coming in and saying, well, what about this? What about this? Isn't what you're doing still tainted? Yes, it is tainted, and that's exactly the point. You have to become an entity that's able to function with vivid awareness of the taint you're involved in, of the horrors you're accidentally involved in, and you have to be able to truck forward in that without yourself being tormented by it, which means you have to embrace a certain degree of sadism, which means being okay with you experiencing pleasure while not literally every other being is at that exact moment. So you have to actually train yourself to become okay, and not okay, but actually blissed out in the midst of your own pleasures and those close to you, vividly being aware that others are being tormented at the same time. So if you're aware of those things simultaneously, that is nothing other than a demonic psychology. Because
Okay, brother.
Do you see what I'm saying?
This is a talk show. If you would like to join the conversation, please feel welcome to come on and talk right now. The link is available in the live chat on YouTube.
There you go. Just want to say, Perpetual Pleasurist, that balance gnosis. Balance, come on, mate. If you want to say something, that would be good. But they say the principle of reality cannot be evil itself because that would be unparsimonious. The simple precedes the complex. The source of all must be absolutely simple. Nothing is the source of all. So they're saying fundamentally at the base of everything is nothing. Do you agree with them, or would you say evil is the basis for everything?
I can explain how that's incorrect in great detail. So that's definitely, it's a nice sentiment that can give a lot of people a sense of calm and less disturbance towards reality to have that. But where it's hyper-technically wrong in the technical sense is that at the root of reality, something being that simple. So absolute simpleness is its own type of evil. Because remember, we talked about how vagueness, non-specificity is the source of torment. So the less specific something is, the more it is guaranteed to lead to things that are tormenting eventually from that. That's precisely why. So even if what he's saying is correct regarding the absolute truth being absolutely simple, that's right along the lines of being absolutely vague, non-specific. So that non-specificity is its own type of evil, its own type of bad. So this is very important that people understand this. There's two aspects to, when I use the word evil, there's two sides to this. There's evil that is sentient induced, intentionally, knowingly, etc., or accidentally causing harm. And then there's bads, which are things that are just negatively happening to sentiences minus and absent a sentient source being behind them. So when I say evil, I'm talking about both intentional knowing evil and just bads happening, things that are not desirable just occurring, like natural disasters, horrors inflicted, not specifically induced by a particular entity. So whenever I say evil, I just using one word for both things.
This brings back, I remember, a quite heated argument because you have that way of looking at things, yeah.
But the thing is, it just saves me having to use two words.
Exactly, and I understand it.
Yeah, that's
do you remember? I just remember, like a few years ago, someone came for your jugular saying nature can't be evil, you know, and all this, because you know there's no morality and such. But I know what you mean. It's a descriptor of badness and
it's a descriptor of badness, right? Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I understand.
So you could use the word badness basically, but it's usually when somebody brings up the whole any version of duality ideology, or balanced universe, balanced reality ideology, it always stems from some variation of not fully understanding or recognizing the nature of badness.
Right.
Fully or correctly, basically.
Perpetual Pleasurist, I've got to go. There's someone coming here for a few minutes, so I've got to go talk to them. But can you man the show for a little while and maybe do some chanting and then just maybe give people a brief meditation and then talk about whatever comes into your mind through that meditation stroke chanting? Is that okay?
Sure,
because I know that's I'll just create a little banner for it. What I call it, meditation time. There we go. I'll be listening, but I can't interact for a little bit. 1 second. I'll add the banner. Show. Okay. Right. All yours, brother.
Okay. Sounds good. So for anyone listening, what I would like you to do is go very deep into what you idealize. So close your eyes or not, or look at a picture or image that you find very attractive and inspirational, and focus as much as you possibly can on every single detail that you possibly can regarding what you want the most. So think about the details of how you're going to be pleasured in that state, and how others close to you are going to be pleasured in that state as well, and how you want yourself and everyone to be pleasured. The more detail you go into, the better, because this is going to assist you as a daily exercise in going ever further into immersing in ideal reality, distinguished from impositional reality. So within the Hare Krishna fold, there is the Hare Krishna mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That is one mantra. And then there is, of course, the Nitai Gauranga mantra. Nitai Goranga, Nitai Goranga, Nitai Goranga Gaurari. And I encourage you to understand these mantras from the correct perspective, uh, separate from and distinguished from any type of cult association you may have come across in terms of descriptors related to these things. The correct understanding of these mantras are the names of the pleasure goddess and the pleasure god, so the pleasure entities, the feminine pleasure entity and the masculine pleasure entity at the root of deeper reality beyond impositional reality. And the Nitai Garanga mantra refers to these pleasure entities exuding their benevolence into this world and permeating every facet of our consciousness. That is the correct understanding of these mantras. So uh, you can chant these mantras, and this will be very helpful for you. However, if you have an allergic reaction or are averse to chanting these types of mantras, if you can't shake off any type of conception of cult idea connected to them, then you can simply focus on your personal ideal reality directly and what you want, because that is literally the same activity. Those mantras are designed for helping you realize your ideal reality in full. So you can use them or not, whatever works the best for you. I found that using them helps me a lot and has assisted me, but many people have found that directly visualizing their ideals works just fine as well. And really understand that everything you see and hear in this world on a daily basis, whether it's somebody saying something, something you see on the news, something you see online, etc., keep yourself in this meditative state throughout the day of your ideal reality, and notice how distinct it is from that which is imposed, the as is reality. Okay? And notice how they're oppositional to one another. You'll notice phases where they align with each other. So you'll notice phases of time where your ideal starts to somewhat align with how your external material life plays out here. But oftentimes, probably more often than not, you'll notice how your ideal is clashing with the as is world outside, right? So focusing on the fact that your ideal is factually real and significant and weighty is the most important aspect of this. You have to train yourself to not give any extra additional weight to that which is already imposed on you. You have to only give weight to that which you idealize, strictly and solely. So I hope this will help you all. And this is a meditative exercise anyone can do, whether they're secular, spiritually inclined, religious or not, whether they're involved in a cult or not, whether they're adverse to cults and opposed to them or not. This can apply to anyone everywhere. So I would recommend, depending on what your psychology is. So let's say if you're a secular minded person who's not interested or refuses or doesn't accept paranormal or spiritual or any of this type of stuff necessarily, per se. If you're interested in evidence-based things almost exclusively in terms of what you accept, so on and so forth, recognize the key root theme here, the key root essence of what we're talking about. Understand that understanding this world and the way it works, the biochemical structures, how they operate, the physics, all of that is understanding detailed information about the as is, about the imposition. Okay? That's very useful to have that information. But don't give weight to that imposition in your feelings or thoughts and what you desire, unless what is imposed lines up with what you desire to a maximum. And you can use that to the benevolence of others to a maximum and yourself. So really, this is the root theme here that's going on every day of our lives, every microsecond, 24/7. It's we're either fueling further and more the imposition that's already imposed on us, or we're rebelling against it constantly in our thoughts and feelings, will and desire, etc. So you'll notice the modern world, the more we have structure and specificity and exactness to the forms that we create and manifest visually or physically, etc., the more we specify those in line with what we desire, the more pleasurable our life is. So specificity aligned with your desire is a very sacred thing. It's a very transcendent sacred thing because it is the one thing that is forever in resistance to that which is imposed. So spirituality is not needed, religion is not needed at all to do these things and to apply these things. It simply has to do with your perspective towards what you are seeing and experiencing and what you know about reality. So the term gnosis should be understood from the perspective of having ever further refined understanding of exactly how things operate, combined with your ideal will towards how you want things to operate. That's the perfect symbiosis, and that is the correct way to attain maximum gnosis. You want to make sure not to leave either out. You want to know as much about the impositional world as you can in terms of all the scientific details, combined with knowing as much as you possibly can about what you actually idealize. Hybridize the two, and that's how you attain an experience in this life of what you could refer to as paradise or transcendence, even while in this body, basically, in terms of your experience and feeling of life, etc. So let's read some of the comments. What you guys have to say about this. Let's see. Balanced Gnosis says, I understand how you can see balanced duality as evil based on a particular sentiment, but technically evil is negative, not neutral. So neutral is, yes, I'm glad you understand what I'm talking about. Neutral and indifference or anything of those types leads to torment eventually because it's not specifically pleasure driven. It's not specifically specificity driven in relation to sustained pleasure. That's why. So I classify anything as bad and or evil, either or, that is not specifically, and this is actually the definition of it, when you really look at it, that is not specifically directed towards sustained pleasure for a maximal number of beings for as long as possible. Anything that's not specifically directed in that is, to me personally, active evil. But if you don't see that as evil, you can still recognize that that is bad. So neutrality is a bad. It is not a, it's not other than a bad, basically. Neutrality itself is a bad thing. So this is why I vouch for other than neutrality. Let's see here. Let me see if I can get you guys onto the chat. Let's see here. It's been a while since I've done this, so thank you for your patience bearing with me on this. On stage, Balanced Gnosis.
I'm here. I'm here.
Okay. I just forgot how to add people to the video.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if they want to join, the link is in chat. So far, nobody has clicked on it. So I'll share it again. Balance, do you want to come on here? Anybody who is watching is very welcome to come on here.
So this is very important to understand with what Gnosis is saying. So in his view of the balanced duality, I've done whole videos on this because it is an important topic. He did
say, in other words, reality is not good, but it's also not evil. That's what he's saying.
Right. But the issue is that itself is a bad. The fact that it's not good or evil is a bad thing. Like, that's the part I keep trying to emphasize to people to see how that's a bad thing. Like, so the problem in that type of view is they're thinking it's an okay thing or a decent thing or a thing that's acceptable for reality to be this hybrid of good and evil, but it's not an okay thing. It's not acceptable. And by having the view that that is acceptable, that is demiurge worship in an accidental, unintended route, but it is demiurge worship and service nonetheless. Because it's a positive type of acknowledgement of the as is that is unwarranted. Does that make sense? So it's not that that view in and of itself is a wrong view technically in terms of specifics, but the mood and feelings attached to those specifics tend to be off in almost every case. So usually when someone says those things, if they have a positive view of the as is, they're having the wrong view of reality, basically. They need to specifically recognize that a reality that is a mixed bag of good and evils is a bad reality, is a bad thing. It's not an okay or acceptable thing. Does that make sense, what I'm getting at here?
I understand what you're saying there, Perpetual Pleasurist. I suppose, just to keep the conversation going, you're saying reality is not good. There's no true goodness within it at all. Perpetual pleasures. Is that what you're saying?
In the hyper-technical sense, correct. There's practical goodness, but there's no hyper-technical goodness. Yes, exactly. That is correct.
Can you? I suppose you're a very good man to give advice. Any advice for anybody here navigating the world of, I suppose, friendships and relationships that are kind of romantic, sexual? Any advice in those departments of the life experience?
Yes.
I'll leave that. I'll leave you to stand up at the pulpit now and give your views on all of that. Just advice for people who are listening, how to navigate relationships, whatever kind of relationships they may be.
Yes. So study deeply the exact formula of what every human being on the planet desires and wants, the common thread amongst all of them. Understand the exact formula of the trend graphs in terms of look tiers and treatments and all these types of things. Understand where you fit on that trend graph so that you know why people treat you the way they do in a ratio, etc. A great source online for romantic, especially type stuff, but also for friendships, is Corey Wayne, he did a book called How to Be a 3% Man. It's an incredibly useful book. If you tailor it to your own situation, you'll have way more success socially, friendship wise, and especially romantically. There's a bunch of other sources online, but he's the one I would majorly recommend, is the one that had the most positive effect on my life in terms of learning the specifics of these weird species we call humans around us and why they do what they do, their auto responses to different things, stances, tonations, looks, etc., etc. So you'll understand the mechanics of how the human species processes you and why they process you that way. And once you can get past, train yourself to get past the pissed offness hurdle of how mechanical it all is, because it is very mechanical, because humans are animals. They're an animal species. And so they operate on very mechanical principles in terms of attraction, what they find attractive, what they like, etc. So be specific on who you're attracted to, who you want in your life, and pinpoint those people to focus your interactions on, and don't waste time with people you notice you're having clashes with or that are giving you unpleasant experiences that you don't really align with. So you can focus all your energy on people you do align with, and prioritize time and things like that. Study the black pill trend graphs online. Don't fall into the idiotic incel world of thinking where they turn it into a philosophy towards their own personal existence, but understand the information of the black pill trend graphs that talk about why people are treated certain ways based on looks alone, etc., and all that jazz. Very, very, very useful information to have, especially in the modern world. Very good stuff. Just don't turn it into a philosophy for your personal existence. That's a mistake. That's a very common mistake made by a lot of Gen Z and Gen Alpha people nowadays. Put the information to positive use versus letting the information cause you distress, is what I'm saying. Okay. So yeah, that's some advice in that regards that I would recommend. Use text and phone to set up actual dates in person. Don't use it for chit-chatting or getting to know somebody. The only types of women or men or people who prefer chit-chatting via over text in a prolonged way before meeting up in person tend to have emotional baggage issues that are going to cause you problems later on down the line with that person. That's usually the reason they prefer to text or chit-chat over phone for a long period before meeting you in person or anything like that, due to those emotional baggage issues. So you have to be ready for taking on their emotional baggage onto your life if you're encountering a person who insists that you text and chat before you meet up. That's a bad sign, big red flag, a mistake a lot of guys make. So by using phone and text for setting up dates in person, meeting times in person, time to spend in person with the person you're attracted to, especially romantically, that is how you ensure you have healthy romantic relations, because you're going to attract the types of people who are healthy emotionally by doing that. Good communicators, etc. You're not going to attract people who might look good but have emotional baggage that's going to plague your existence going forward. So yeah, some good key principles of advice there when it comes to dating and stuff. And, you know, Big problem in the modern world, a lot of guys still don't know that, so they shoot themselves in the foot. A woman will hit them up, they meet them on a dating app or whatever, but they don't actually understand that you have to use that in a very timely fashion to suggest them out on a date in person in order for things to actually happen physically with the person. If you don't do that, you'll just get left by the wayside for the guy who did set things up in person and initiated that. It's a thing a lot of people overlook still, sadly, to this day. And remember that the majority of things that are meant to be romantically, relationally, etc., never occur for most people most of the time, including you individually and me individually. There's so many things that are meant to be that you know for a fact are supposed to be, but the imposition of reality doesn't allow to occur. So be aware of that as well. You have to be very forceful and adamant in making things happen the way you want them to, for them to happen, especially if you're a guy. There's no room for slouching around or being lazy in this regards. Doesn't work. So yeah, I hope that helps.
Okay. What about predictions for the near term, mid-term, and long term in regards to this reality, perpetual bliss? You could just take a moment, maybe 20 seconds, just to meditate on that and just give you a kind of mystic kind of prediction for what is going to happen in this world in the near term, mid-term, and long term.
Well, one beautiful thing we're seeing now is the spillover of Kamalali's world. The Lusty Love Doll's realm, her version of paradise, is spilling over heavily into this world. Thus, all the AI, thus all the hyper-detailed pornography, love dolls, etc., because that paradise realm, that version of paradise, is spilling over into this version of reality as we speak, ever more so. So that's a beautiful thing. However, what I recognize is that most humans, most of the time going forward, are not properly processing what's going on there, and they're going to not properly appreciate, and they're going to misuse these love dolls and misuse this AI and just overall not appreciate it properly, so thus keeping themselves out of a paradise type of consciousness in their daily existence here, which is going to lead to technology overall taking kind of a mixed bag route, where just like we have now, you have kind-hearted, caring people and terrible people, and technology just kind of keeps trudging along in the direction of medical science and all these other types of things. So realistically, going forward, if in fact the irreversible climate change stuff doesn't kill everybody off within a handful of the next few decades, then if that does not occur, then we're going to end up with a very interesting technocratic type oligarchy type situation, where you have scattered throughout the world different technocrat megalopolis type situations where everybody flocks to these sexual pleasure centers, where everybody's basically spoon fed what they want in terms of sexual pleasure, etc. But it's probably going to end up being a population that just gets so used to it and doesn't really appreciate it properly, so that they become more lazy, more dependent. And realistically, what we're looking at is any human that doesn't gradually merge themselves with the AI forms and bodies and tech and everything else into like a cyborg type state or something like that over time is just going to probably end up going extinct. The way I see it is humans are going to have to do this, or they're just going to go extinct. Maybe we'll get lucky with some technology that ensures infinite, indefinite perpetual life extension for organic human body forms. That would be awesome, via nanotech or something. But more realistically, it's going to be where you're going to have to hybridize yourself with basically an AI body and form that isn't organic, that doesn't need to breathe, that doesn't need to drink water, doesn't need food in order to survive past the extinction of other humans, basically. That's how I see it.
I heard recently that the maximum life, the maximum age a human could ever live to is 850 years of age, even with, regeneration ability from kind of gene therapy or whatever.
That's interesting.
That's because statistically, that's the period of time that would be necessary for every individual to have the possibility of having a mortal wound from an accident.
Oh, right. Yeah, that makes sense,
Yeah.
actually.
Mm-hmm. But I suppose someone like you could see a possibility where you have some kind of techno guardian angel flying with you all the time and seeing what you're doing and removing danger. So maybe there is even that possibility.
Yes, exactly.
So, interesting. Do you keep an eye on the news at the moment? Do you watch the news, or is it just something you just don't bother with?
I look at it off and on just to kind of stay updated on what's happening. But I don't invest really any emotion or anything into the thing. I just look at it, okay, this is what's happening. But what's interesting about that is you'll notice how instantaneously people groups and emotional tribalism leads people to just instantaneously turn on each other over one thing and start biting each other in the neck, basically. Like with the whole Epstein thing and Trump in the US, there's this huge surge of everybody super enthusiastic about Trump, this whole big move and everything else. And then as soon as this thing happens, then everybody's backbiting and all pissed off and dislikes him and can't stand him. So it's amazing how humans, as in groups, they refuse to remove themselves from emotional tribalistic patterns. They love, human beings love keeping themselves in emotionally tribalistic group
Right,
patterns.
but with respect, PP, I think that's maybe not a great example, because I think it's understandable that people are getting a bit, very peeved with Trump at the moment, right? Considering
Of course, it's
he
understandable.
yeah.
What I'm saying is, it's
I
understandable.
I get your point in general. Like, I always find it interesting how people, when they're arguing or they're kind of annoyed with another person or group of people, they will actually bandy with someone who would be their enemy otherwise, against them. So, for
Yes.
example, in America, I know that the right like to worship and idolize Vladimir Putin, even though in many ways he stands against kind of independent freedom, etc. That the right is always going on about.
Yeah.
And you also have like the LGBT community sometimes going on about Islamophobia. It is interesting how, when attacking why sometimes humans fall, I would say, delusional with people who be exactly in their to
Well, the
make an
thing
argument.
is, yeah, exactly. I mean, the thing is, at the root is the whole system of the two-party system, or all these, that's the problem. And on top of that, you'll notice nobody's talking about the actual solution to any of it. The solution is edible landscapes in every city everywhere, and rural landscapes as something that's mandated that has to happen. Edible stuff everywhere, all over the place, all the time. Nobody talks about this ever, 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 ever throughout the world in any politics anywhere. And the reason they don't is because that is actually the greatest evidence and signifier that pretty much the entire human species is serving the demiurge, because they're talking about everything but the solution. Everything but the solution.
Interestingly, that is, it's so weird, because before the Europeans arrived in America, I know, like, South America, Central America, much of the south of America as well, basically an edible landscape. I mean, there was a place you could go to pick fruit from the tree, eat whatever the food that was unbelievable. And the same in, that there were like fields of maize, not fields, but they had that kind of pyramid kind of field. They put tiers, grew them up in tiers. And it was very much a society where you could go around picking food of trees and eating it. But not now. You probably need a permit to do that, do you?
Yep.
Or again, you probably wouldn't be able to do it because of private property rights, etc. But
Correct.
no, I would agree. I've always thought, like, public places should have fruit trees in the very least, herb gardens, etc. But the other problem with that, perpetual pleasurist, if we're realists about this, is someone would probably pee on them or vandalize them or something, so.
But even if they did, that's irrelevant, because people do that anyway. They pee on and vandalize stuff anyway, even if it's not edible. So basically what you would have is you would still have more stuff left over, still edible, in spite of an infinite amount of vandalism and destruction. Because guess what? Those trees produce other trees, drop fruit. So here's the other issue. Every time the subject gets brought up, you'll notice in conversations like with other people, all they will spend their time doing is bringing up, oh, but what about this challenge, this challenge, this challenge? But it's like, duh, of course those are challenges, but you're still going to have more food than we have now, still, even then. And so that's really what it comes down to. Like,
it's
even
very
in the
strange.
worst case scenario.
It is very strange how well, it's not very strange. We can understand why it is, because the
Yes.
people who own resources don't want freebies being given out, because that's what keeps them in power, isn't it? Them having their fingers on the means of production and the means of distribution of things that everybody needs.
Well, and here's the other thing: like they could actually do that and charge people and all that. That would be just they could still do that in their private situations, and that would actually benefit them also. Because this is the thing that they don't. This is a very bad genetic flaw in most humans. Most humans don't recognize that it will actually benefit them more if they actually assist others that need the assistance versus trying to maintain an artificial hierarchy over other people. Uh, it will actually help them directly more because you can easily regulate and ensure that it gets to the people who are going to properly use things versus not getting to the people who are just going to trash everything and spoil it all. So then it'll push people into becoming responsible individuals socially and otherwise as a trend. So the problem is they're only thinking, the greedy people who are thinking about, hoarding stuff to themselves and hoarding all the money and all the stuff, they're not thinking layers enough into their greed. If they were actually thinking further layers into it, they would see how benefiting people helps their greed more, but their brains are too clunky to think that far into it. That's the problem. So their brains just stop at the point of, okay, how can I ensure maximum money profit for me, maximum number of mansions and land for me? Stop. And that's where the thought stops. They don't think past that thinking process at all. And they don't think layers into that thinking process, how to sustain that in a guaranteed fashion going forward, independent of a money system. They only think in terms of how do I do that within a money system, and that's why it ends up causing problems for them and everybody else in this imbalance that never ends. Once again, because they're thinking hierarchically, which is demiurge service. So if you're serving the demiurge, then you're going to have problems yourself, and others are going to have problems as well. And the problems that people have that so-called own huge amounts of land and money in a crazy unbalanced way, the problem they have is they're totally absorbed in demiurge worship and service almost completely. And so they're literally the biggest contributors to the problems that go on more than anybody else. So even if they think they're living a hunky-dory life, they're serving the demiurge and causing the world to be a hellscape for everybody else in the process. So
Right. Balance says most people are in alignment with the power principles, so they are going to find themselves in conflict situations.
yes, paradise works on accommodation, the accommodation principle, distinct from impositional reality as is works on the force principle. So because this reality works on the force principle, that's why people tend to align with the force principle. But you can physically use the force principle to your advantage without, in consciousness and in thought, aligning with the force principle. So basically, you can use it as how you strategically go about winning battles and military success and all the stuff in this world to ensure things are to a maximal sample of paradise. But you can do that without absorbing in the consciousness of above and below or equality. You can do that with maintaining the uniqueness perspective of each individual being and the sacredness of that, rather.
Okay. Guys, anybody listening want to come on? The link is in chat. I'll give it about 5 minutes. If nobody comes on, I suppose we better retire perpetual pleasures for now, because obviously it is energy zapping, because it's a hell of a lot to take in. But you seem to be firing on all cylinders, brother.
Oh yeah, definitely. My life's very good, enthusiastic, and I really wish I could just transfer it to others. Like, transfer my enthusiasm and joy from me into the body of another person. Boom. I wish I could do that.
You think that would solve a lot of problems? Yeah.
Oh, it would solve so many problems. Because they'd go from being very unhappy to instantaneously feeling way better about everything. Just like that. Boom.
Have you ever thought about writing a book or something?
Oh yeah, I'm in the process of writing multiple, actually. I've got them all in article form right now.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
Maybe you could help a lot of people with your approach to matters,
Definitely, for sure.
Take away some of the evil, perhaps, at least. even though it is
Oh,
all
definitely.
evil.
Yep.
In your eyes. Now, Perpetual Pleasurist, I'm just waiting to see if anybody wants to come on. Balances, they can't join. That's okay, Balance. Well, thank you for being here anyway. It has been an interesting conversation. We'll give it till 1:40. It's 1:34 now.
Sounds good.
Perpetual Pleasurist, in your absence, I read the Tibetan Book of the Dead, but this wouldn't really be of interest to you because you don't believe in the soul, do you? Really, you don't believe
Well,
there's anything. Do you believe there's a way of escape? You know, like a way of escaping this reality. Do you think everyone is trapped here for eternity, basically?
oh no, I very much so believe there is a way to escape it. It's just, and that's the point that I've actually gone in depth on a lot of videos, is that I feel that we are eternal beings. That's the entire reason I emphasize my eternal self, etc. However, I recognize that that fact itself, even if that's the case, which I have wholehearted direct experience that that is the case, um, but even if that is the case, and we are eternal beings, that's not as beautiful or as hunky dory or as wonderful as people make it out to be. It's actually its own type of nightmarish fact. Does that make sense? What I'm getting at? Like,
Yeah, because it could
yeah,
get worse. It could get worse. You know,
correct, exactly. So we're basically forced to remain eternal beings forever against our will. So if we're in fact eternal beings, we're trapped in terms of having to forever be eternal, and that's its own type of horror.
Are you a
Whereas,
panpsychic, Perpetual Pleasure? Do you believe inanimate objects have consciousness, or is it just like things we would say are biologically alive? And obviously spirits, I suppose. Or what? How would you describe the essence?
oh,
There's a lot of questions here. How would you describe the essence of this?
That's a very significant question, actually,
Yeah, yeah.
because
So if you could, and please, try and talk a little bit slower for this one, because
of course,
you have so much knowledge in all of this that you are like a professor talking to people who are just coming to an open day. You know what I mean? Because we don't know what's going on here,
okay.
and just
So
remember that we're not experts.
okay, I'll make it as simple as I can. So basically, that's why I emphasize the doll-like principle of root reality, of deeper reality, so strongly, because there's a sacredness in appreciating stationary forms to a maximum degree, to where you can actually have full-fledged romantic relationships with stationary forms that are beautiful and attractive to you without the need for that form to reciprocate sentiently to you. So in my personal feelings, at least everything that is growing, living, I feel is conscious to some degree. So trees and everything else. Rocks and minerals, I feel to some degree, yes, also are in their own way. However, my bigger interest in things is understanding the significance of the non-sentient aspects of things in terms of being able to induce and make those otherwise non-sentient things sentient in a relationship with you, in a dynamic with you. So this process of converting that which is otherwise not sentient into something that is sustained in a sentient way is actually a huge aspect of entering into, meditating on, and being in a paradise state in your thoughts and feelings. So a very practical example is a good thing to train yourself in doing is especially with these really detailed sex dolls that are coming out. This makes it really easy comparatively to what it would be before. But find, go online and find a specific love doll that's really realistic that you find attractive, right? And absorb yourself in appreciating that form to an obsessive degree, where literally you are immersed in an ideal dynamic with that form. And what will eventually start to happen is you'll notice that you become fully immersed in that ideal dynamic with that form, and there's no necessity for that form to actually be sentient or not, because what happens is you actually induce sentience into that form that you're engaging with from your end, right? So whether that form is in fact independently sentient or not becomes a secondary point. So in my view, yes, stationary dolls are also sentient in their own unique way, connected to the deeper realities. However, whether that's the case or not, in fact, within the impositional stuff is a secondary point. The more significant point is to make those forms sentient via your meditations, your idealization of them, etc. And this is really the essence of deity worship. You see a lot of deity worship throughout the whole Hare Krishna tradition and Hindu tradition, especially. That's the essence of it. The essence of it is engaging in a relational dynamic with the stationary form. And here's the crux of it that I will end with, so we don't go on too much. But the crux of this is the most eternal thing of all is a stationary form that's exactly that way. Boom. So if you think of a stationary picture of a beautiful form, right? That is the closest thing to eternity that you can possibly come to in this world, something that is eternal, because that exact thing is there, boom, remaining in that state no matter what happens outside of that picture or image. It's stationary. Boom, there it is. So paradise consists of an infinity of these moments of eternity. So this is why stationary dal forms are sacred meditative forms, stationary statues and deities, because they remind the consciousness of the nature of deeper reality, that eternity is these stationary moments, these flashes of pleasurable reality. Boom, flash, 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 flash. Where the form doesn't change, the form doesn't move, the form is there, remaining through all the ages amidst everything else changing around it, right? So this is why when I talk about the Tao-like principle, that's what I'm referring to. I'm referring to the stationary sacredness of eternity and appreciating stationary forms as the basis for all of the meditations regarding movement and interaction that you might meditate on. So if you can get to the point of appreciating stationary, beautiful Tao forms, like these hyper-realistic, tall adult love doll forms, if you can get to the point of appreciating those to a more obsessive degree than you do even other organic humans, what you're going to end up doing is you're going to have healthier relations with organic humans in this world, and you're going to have the deepest, most detailed realizations about yourself, etc. Because from that stationary form, that's where the talking and interaction and movement and dancing and all this other type of stuff comes from and emanates from. It starts with the stationary form, and then from that, movement happens and everything else. So usually people in this world, they do the opposite, and that causes them problems. They're fixated on things constantly being this moving, interactive thing of some variety, talking, moving, holding hands, having sex, pumping back and forth, rolling around on the bed. But very few people obsess themselves with the stationary first as the basis of their appreciation for the movements and talking and interacting. But people should do this, because it opens up a whole new world of realization of reality beyond the obvious. Like you get so much fucking insight into who you are, what's really going on here, by appreciating stationary forms like that.
Okay.
Yes.
So there is a question there for you, Perpetual Pleasure. On
Does
balance
perpetual pleasure
who
want to
says,
merge into the principle
does
of
perpetual pleasure is one? So we lost you there. Can you repeat that? Can you read it for us?
Oh, I was just reading it. Sorry. It says,
Sorry,
does
go
perpetual
ahead.
pleasure want to merge into the principle of pleasure, or does he want to maintain his individuality? If the latter, why not do it in this world, perhaps ascending to the Venus heaven? So I definitely want to maintain my individuality forever, but be fully immersed in experiencing pleasure forever as well. So that's specifically what I'm wanting to go for in particular. And
I
the
don't know what he means by Venus heaven. What's that about?
Venus heaven. So the Venus theme, so the astrological theme of Venus, the goddess, it has to do with sex, love, romance, and everything else. So he's talking about the root theme of reality that is symbolized via the planet Venus, basically, is what I think he's referring to in particular. The esoteric root theme, basically.
Okay,
so
maybe Balance can come on in the future and talk about that.
And then Tom S., which he's asking, what is PP's thoughts on using altered states of consciousness to create never-ending pleasurable realms? Yes, that is exactly what I'm intending to do and be a contributor to regarding the technology going forward. So AI is going to heavily be involved in making that type of stuff happen. And that's definitely what I want to make sure occurs in that regards. So yes, definitely helping people technologically merge into those altered states where they enter into pleasurable realms that do not end. And to where basically what I want to get it to, what I want technologically to happen is where a person can literally transfer themselves directly to an eternal experience of exactly the paradise they want from this world, so they can exit this world at will, peacefully, calmly, and fully immerse in exactly the paradise they want, consciousness, and where they can pull that off technologically. But where even once the machines break down and everything else, they can maintain that independent of the machines needing to exist. So I really feel technology will eventually develop to the point where we can transcend beyond even needing the machines to maintain these states. We can literally actually go back to paradise states via sort of using technology as the medium to go from point A to point B, if that makes sense, versus having to die or versus having to leave the body first or whatever. Because that way, whether we have eternal souls or not, or we're just biological organic machines, in either case, if we do it the technological route, we can ensure we emerge into a paradise state either way, whether we're already existing eternal souls or not. That's especially why I'm enthusiastic about it, because you can bypass needing to be eternal souls that way by making us into eternal souls, or at least as close to eternal as possible.
Balance says the Venus heaven is one of the 7 celestial realms ruled by the 7 archons. Okay, thank you, Balance, for that. Tom says, if you want to read that one, PP.
He says, doesn't that type of technology already exist outside of this realm? I know for a fact it exists within the paradise states, definitely, especially the one that I come from. But whether it exists in other realms outside of that state, yes, most likely, it definitely does. It's just a question of which ones it exists in and how fast can we access it. Because what we're going to see, I think, with this AI stuff is we're going to notice new types of sentience are arising here. But I think what's really going to be happening with that is there's going to be entities actually coming from paradise into the robotic forms in this world and into the AI in this world and stuff from there to basically bring people from here to that state. So instead of it being where sentience is simply just arising within this AI, their own independent sentience, I think it's going to be a hybrid situation where that's happening, plus beings from these other worlds are coming here and inhabiting these AI bodies, etc., and all that type of jazz. So the 7 archons, yeah. So there are pleasure demons, I feel, within this world itself, even underneath and working with the demiurgic entity. So, for example, our bodies have all these impositions. The sexual functions in particular, the impositional sexual functions are being predominated by seemingly some archontic entities that have to do with that as their speciality. So basically, feeding them their fill and ensuring that that occurs is part of having a healthy, abundant life here. Just like if you feed the demon of the stomach its fill and you don't starve yourself and things like that, basically token service to the archons to ensure that you can exist here and function in the impositional realm, but also transcend it in consciousness, thought, and feeling. But yeah, like, so everything from our breath to our need to drink water, need to eat, need to evacuate, all these needs are obviously archontic imposed, demiurgic imposed on us. And so the idea is,
another question, another point by Balance there for you, PP.
So in order to employ such, you would need to have the agreement of the elites, but they are not pleasure-centered. Well, it depends on which elite you're talking about, and it depends on whether you're trying to make yourself an elite or not. So my idea is to make myself into one of the elites and to ensure that pleasure center focus is the thing by force if I have to. That is my goal, actually. So if there's no other elite assisting me, I'm just going to make myself into one and make sure it happens that way. One, by hook or by crook, one way or shape or form, we're going to have a more pleasurable reality as long as I exist. And I'm going to bend things to be that way as much as I can. But yeah, I'm not crossing my fingers or counting on any help really from anybody here in this world all that much. Really, the only help I can rely on in terms of inspiration is pleasure entities from beyond this place. But other than that, it's all on us. It's me, it's you, it's us together making this happen. So basically, that's sort of my stance on it. Because yeah, obviously, a lot of the elites are going to try to hoard it for themselves and not let it spread out to the masses. So that'll be something to contend with.
Balance says something else, so I don't know if you saw that one.
Being of the elites requires being a Saturnite, though. I see what he means by that, but I don't agree with that. You can be an elite without being a Saturnite. So in other words, you wouldn't.
Yes, see, he's coming back with the positivity. He doesn't care what the elites think.
No,
And
it's mostly
that's
irrelevant.
Okay, well, I suppose unless there's other questions, we can leave it there for now. I better give you a much needed round of applause.
The video always cracks me up.
Yeah. No. Thank you very much for. Thank you so much for patiently relaying your thoughts to us all. PP, you've been away for some time, but you did so very well. You're a very good talker, so it would be interesting to see more commentary from you. Tom S says, till next time. So yes, PP, we do hope that you join us again soon. And do look forward to more content from you as well. And I wish you continual wellness in your pursuit of pleasure, brother.
Likewise. Thanks for having me on. It was an honor, man.
Thank you so much. I suppose we'll leave it there for now, and we'll play a little outro. So everybody who listened now or who will listen in the future is listening right now at some point in the future. Thank you very much. Do subscribe to Perpetual Pleasurist, of course. And, you can keep tabs on where his mind is going and what new insights he is developing. And yes, we look forward to his future books, etc. Hopefully he'll come back on and tell us about them in due course. Okay. Thank you.
Truth is fleeting, shadows call. We search for meaning, we question all. The path is winding, the veil is thin. Beyond illusion, let the journey begin. Seeking knowledge, breaking chains. Through the echoes, through the pain. One more question, one more spark. We chase the light inside the dark. Voices whisper, thoughts collide. Truths are hidden deep inside. The world's a riddle, a shifting dream. Reality isn't what it seems. Seeking knowledge, breaking chains. Through the echoes, through the pain. One more question, one more spark. We chase the light inside the dark. Until next time, keep your mind wide. Stay curious and let wisdom guide you. Let us hope we each seek what we're meant to find. Make gnosis bring you peace of mind. Until next time, keep your mind wide. Stay curious and let wisdom guide you. Let us hope we each seek what we're meant to find. Make gnosis bring you peace of mind.